And just like you said, there we go. Reminder everyone to press the button to turn it on and off. I'm broadcasting. Thank you. I think we're all set. Going to call this meeting to order. This is 6 p.m. work session. Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's work session is something that staff has been working on for over the last several years. In the staff memo, we outlined the Communities for All Ages program that the city is a gold level participant of. It took us about 2.5 years to reach that designation. And our work with the National League of Cities, we were a participant in the First Suburbs Coalition Regional Housing Summit. And we did that. That work happened in early 2019, and the report was published in November of 2019. That particular report was to address affordable housing or workforce housing concerns in the metro and across the United States. The city's involvement in both the Communities for All Ages program as well as the NLC Housing Summit led to the previous council adding Goal 2, provide a variety of quality housing options, styles, and price ranges. Strategy 5A, evaluate and consider home repair programs that might be made available. Again, in the staff memo, we outlined some of the items that a minor home repair and a home modification program, along with regional information on what other municipalities offer with those programs here in the metro. Tonight we have Deb Herman from Northland Neighbors, Inc. and Clay McQuarrie with Rebuilding Together Kansas City to present their programs. After their presentation, so they'll give their presentation and the City Council is more than welcome to ask any questions you may have about their programs or their offerings. They do provide this service to the City of Gladstone. We would like to hear the council's thoughts on establishing a similar program. And in my memo, I kind of went over some of the direction that I'd like to discuss so that I have clarity moving forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Deb Herman.
Good evening. Thank you for your patience in hearing from me. My name is Deb Herman. I'm the CEO of Northland Neighborhoods, Inc. Our offices are located on the back of the old Antioch Shopping Center. It's the same location as where Burlington Coat Factory used to be. We just moved there in January 2021 and are enjoying really new and improved space. We are the only community development corporation north of the river and have many, many programs. If it will improve neighborhoods, if it will improve the lives of our residents, we're willing to take it on. And one of those major thrusts for us is home repair. Many organizations such as ours take on new build. They build apartment buildings, they build new homes. We felt there's plenty of competition in the Northland. There's plenty of people wanting to build new. We want to get into our older neighborhoods, rehab those homes, do home repairs, and not just, certainly it's important to us that we're providing service for those that live there. We're making their homes safer, more attractive, hopefully more cost saving, but also to save the home for the neighborhood. We all know of homes in older neighborhoods that by the time the residents got done with the home, they hadn't been able to maintain them, and the home was done too. We want to hang on to our older neighborhoods. These are quality neighborhoods. Certainly when I came to Northland Neighborhoods 10 years ago, Northland Neighborhoods had one home repair program, and it was open to Kansas City residents only. Now, you can't quite blame Kansas City when they fund something. They get kind of parochial about it and want to keep it in their boundaries. Recognizing the need and recognizing that most people north of the river drive from city to city, village to village, and they don't know what city they're in, and what happens to one certainly has an impact on all of them. We found it important that we be able to reach out to the entire Northland, and since then we have continued to apply for home repair grants. We now have 9 home repair programs. You would think that these things would be standardized. They are not. I have staff that have the patience of Job and professionalism to sort out what's required for which home repair program. Some of them are restricted by age, some of them are restricted by geographic area, but there are 9 programs. When someone calls Northland Neighborhoods looking for home repair, I have professional staff that goes through their qualifications, what their needs are, and that we know of, we have not turned anyone away that income qualified. They might have to wait for a new grant to start or dollars to open up, but I don't believe we turned down anyone. I have a presentation. I'm not really good at this. These are examples of some of the home repairs we've taken on recently. This is a Gladstone home. Their income was, I'm having trouble reading that, $23,000. The improvement was $22,900. Foundation, windows, roofs, gutters, downspouts, paint. You can see some examples of the condition that it was in. There's an old and new, or before and after. I think that's pretty drastic improvement. There's another one that her floor, she had so many water leaks into her house. Her living room floor was just destroyed. You can see here down these stairs that she has tried, it was a single elderly woman, she's tried to seal it herself, which didn't work really well. Her flooring on one side of her main floor of her home had been totally destroyed and was now kind of that temporary flooring or subflooring. This is the, let me see, get my own pictures going here. I believe these are after photos of some of the work that we did. There's the difference. We put in all new flooring. On the right is the new and on the left is the old. This is another one, massive leaks around their windows. Their kitchen floor was worn, the linoleum in some areas was worn almost all the way through. And their income was $16,000 and the improvement was $16,800. Catching up here with where we're at. This, the before picture of the deck down below, several areas in their deck were worn all the way through, or rotted all the way through to where there's a tree growing up the middle of their deck. On the right, you see the new deck. New kitchen floor, new air conditioner, all new paint, new windows. Here's another one that they've got lots of water problems, which are so common. After pictures of a new surround. The exterior water problem is resolved. This is another one. This was a single mother in Gladstone. She had serious water problems and erosion, water into her basement. New sump pump sealed up some of the cracks. And there she is. And these are ones that are coming up in North Kansas City. And let me take a look at these here. This is on East 23rd Street. It's an older adult senior citizen, income level of 43%. This project was just finished. It's a $9,390 project. And I think right after this, one of her neighbors put this on our Facebook page. Like I said, this project is just recently was completed. This is one that's in process, and this is HVAC. They've also got absolutely no insulation in that home at all. I'm trying to remember what else was going to happen. Gutters. This next one is one that we've just started the file. Their income is $16,000 a year. That's 48% of low mod, and they need a roof, gutters, and doors, I believe. Now, part of that is we will have people call us and say, I need this. We send our professional staff. All of our repairs are done by professional contractors, licensed. Our staff goes out and does an assessment and determines what they really need. For some reason, a lot of times people think they need new windows. If they've got water running through the roof, we're not going to give them new windows. If they've got water is one of the biggest issues as far as causing a lot of damage to homes. That's where we step in and say, this is what you need. We look to the cities, we look to Gladstone, we've looked, and I've talked to Kim before. One of the things we run into is on some of these programs, for instance, one of the programs that we would be using on these projects, on 2 of them, is Federal Home Loan Bank. They max the admin that we can charge at 12%. For that 12%, we have to qualify the people, we have to collect all their documentation, and for some of these projects, it gets, in fact, FHLB, if they're divorced, we have to get a copy of their divorce decree. I mean, it gets, there's quite a bit of work into that. We then have to go through a competitive bid process, select a qualifying contractor, supervise that contractor, take before, during, and after pictures, evaluate the project all the way through, do the final inspection, and for that, there's 12%. That is not, well, it's really not enough money. So we are continually trying to raise money that support the home repair grants that we apply for. It's one of the ways that we work with Gladstone is for qualifying projects. We try to help them give us a match for that. In fact, recently I just talked to Alan, and we've got a project, it's going to be about $1,600 or $16,000, and we need a $1,200 match. We work with them through those. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I feel like I'm just talking, and maybe you've got questions. Yes, ma'am.
When you say you're looking for a match, you mean a match on the 12%? That's what you're saying?
It depends on the project. We don't need 12% necessarily. The projects also require us to put, not only do they limit the admin that can be collected, but they don't want to pay for all of it. We've got to find other funds to put into it. So that's where my staff, and Kim will be rolling her eyes because I know she's done things like this. They've got to take this grant and try to figure out how to make it leverage this grant and where we can find the cash to line this all up. Now, I'll tell you at the end of the day, even with COVID, last year our home repairs for low-income people in the Northland exceeded $1 million. And I'll tell you, our wait list gets longer and longer and longer. So it would depend. I mean, it would depend on just what our shortfall was on a project.
So if I can interject just real fast. So some of the challenge that Ms. Herman is talking about is because we don't have a program to help fund that, it makes it more challenging for her to have to go through several different funding options to try to patty cake, for lack of better words, different grants and applications to get that homeowner the repairs that they need.
Sorry, I was going to follow up. Do you also do anything, I feel like really loud there, like home maintenance education, trying to catch some of these things before they get that deep?
We do kind of on an as-needed basis. In some cases, it is senior citizens that have just outlived their money and their ability to do a lot of things around their home. One of the tougher things we face right now, and unfortunately there have been times that we just walk away. And that is, we had one recently, a senior citizen lady who'd been widowed, but had 3 or 4 grandkids and their friends living with her, who literally were just trashing her house. She'd let her homeowner's insurance lapse. The house was in deplorable condition, and these kids were going through, I think, everything she owned. It would not help for us to continue to throw good money after bad, as long as, in that case, we tried to encourage her and educate her. She needed to move out. She needed to do something different, but yes.
One more on financing. So, you collect a lot in grants. You're also donor-based, correct?
Right.
Okay, how do you distribute those funds? Can people decide what programs they want donations to go towards? Or?
They can. Our admin, we keep very low. Our office expense, very low. We've got a staff of 7, and considering all of our programs, I think it's very, very small staff. But yes, we also have a community board members from across the Northland. Celebrating, if you saw it in our annual report, 9 years of absolutely, my finance person hates it when I say this, and Kim will too, so she's got a finance background. I call them perfect audits. And they'll say, well, it's an audit without comment. It's an audit, there's no such thing as a perfect audit. Well,
Yeah.
to me, if the auditor can't tell me anything I need to do, I kind of call that perfect.
Thank you, Councilmember Clevenger.
Couple of things, get used to pushing the button. I think, certainly in the avenues where we're at, there's a lot of older homes that could maybe benefit from this. Question that I had and another comment is that, this was brought about by our partnership with NLC, and I think that's important partnership that we need to continue. Where we're funding, where it comes from, we'll decide that, but did you say you were talking about 12%? As far as a charge to the city for running the program, is that what the 12% is, or can you?
If it's a program, no, I'm not saying we're going to charge you 12%. I'm saying there's many times we find a gap in achieving a program.
Okay,
I think if it's something you're interested in, I'd be interested in sitting down with some of you or with Kim and figuring out what it is we can do,
okay,
or what you're interested in us doing.
okay.
It's like we're working in North Kansas City now, and there's nothing that says that we won't continue, or we are limited in your city.
Skipping that, Councilmember Saber.
That was sort of the question I had. What do you want from the city? What is it you're looking for?
There was a project late last year, late in our funding year, that we needed $1,800 to do, and we couldn't find it. We'd gone through our other grants, we were out of money. I did call Kim, we tried to go through Mark, who's still, I don't know if they've distributed dollars yet. It would be for Kim in some cases, for instance, in Gladstone, they bring us cases that they have a lot of codes problems with. We have their residents come to us. Now, these are for ones that we need help with. There are many, just like you didn't know probably tonight, that we're working on 3 homes in your city. That happens at Gladstone too, but when we run into one that we need assistance with, we need the city to do something, we work it out with them. Or they say no. That's not one that they're interested in. If it's someone's been a chronic codes problem, they may not be interested in putting a lot of city funding toward it. So it's really up to the city, is just what you want to do.
What follow up to that, excuse me, you would like the city to have sort of I'm not going to call it a slush fund, but a variable fund that would be available depending on what the need is, and that we can then make a decision on, or the staff could. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking to partner with you in any way you feel comfortable with. And
I
if
take
that's,
back that term slush fund, that just word came to mind.
No, that is.
But a variable fund.
Well, that's totally up to your staff and how you want to operate it.
Okay.
We'll get into some of that questions later on, because I am asking for some directions.
Okay.
So the city of Gladstone puts forth $10,000 toward minor home repair and $10,000 toward home modification, which we'll get to in a minute. That is how they have chosen to proceed. Lots of other cities, again, and I kind of got into it, and it gets really complicated extraordinarily fast. We do not receive direct CDBG funding, which is Community Development Block Grant funding. That is how the majority of the cities, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look through my memo, but the majority of the cities that have some formal program, they use those funds to fund it. The smaller the city gets, the tougher the funding gets. Gladstone has made the decision, and Ms. Herman kind of talked about it a little bit. It gets down into neighborhood preservation, character of your community. How do you maintain, how do you keep the residents that are here? How do you not break up the fabric of your neighborhood? Within this particular report, when they were talking about affordable homes, they in the policy implication part, they said the lowest hanging fruit communities have to maintain affordable housing within their community is a minor home repair program. So, and Ms. Herman did, I remember very specifically that particular case. When she called and my answer was, I have nothing because we don't have a program, that's tough to hear. that you were unable to help one of your residents because you don't have a formal program, hence why we're here today.
It's gonna go, did you still have something? Councilmember Clinton, I'll go back this way.
Yeah, I guess I was going to ask, how do you guys prioritize your cases? Are you going to, is it based on severity of the home repair or damage or funds available at that time? I guess I'm wondering how these funds are allocated based on the number of cases you have.
Safety first, health and safety, a collapsed sewer line, no water line, no furnace, no air conditioner. I'm trying to think of something else. That's an emergency project.
Hot water, no running water.
Right. Now, we have gotten, we won't do this with, but we do it with portable air conditioners. We purchased and had donated to us a couple of air conditioners that we take out on loan to clients. And the reason is many of our programs, we've got to get approval. We've got to get approval from our funders, from our grantees or grantors. We've got to get an environmental review done. So you call today and say, my air conditioner doesn't work. Now, in Kansas City, I think we'd all agree, air conditioning, especially for elderly folks, is required. You can't, well, we used to be in a really tight spot because we couldn't move that fast and get the approvals we needed. Now we have portable air conditioners, which aren't perfect, but they can at least be comfortable in one room of their home and be safe until we can get the paperwork done to get out there and do the whole job. Furnaces we don't have, and during the severely cold spell in February, and we just plead with people to call us. If you've had a service guy out and he tells you your furnace is on its last leg, believe him and apply. Because we are really, our liability of handing out space heaters is, our insurance man nearly fainted when I mentioned it. I mean, there's, because it takes a little bit, but we had a lot of frozen pipes. We had a lot of furnaces that just gave up during that spell. So first it's life safety. Then one of the big ones, is it a code violation in the city? And no matter what else you need, if you've got a code violation, a property maintenance violation, it must be part of the program. It must be fixed. Now, I will tell you, and I get in trouble for this, if it's a nuisance violation, we're not coming till you fix it. If you can't take your trash out, and this shows people get a little mad at me for being irritable, but if you can't do the very minimal to take care of your property, why would we be out there spending a lot of money? And we have had clients that, trash bags piled up and grass 2 feet tall, and they want new windows. Well, no. So that's how now I will say sometimes people have to wait.
Yeah, I was going to follow up with what is like a normal turnaround time for these people?
For a non-emergency, it can be a year, and that's just because the number of people we have. And the emergencies come in before the other people waiting. There may be, but we've got excellent staff that does a really good job of looking at these. And you do have, COVID certainly set us behind. We continued working, but it was really, really tough to not get behind. But we did have, in fact, we were talking about today, we had one elderly woman that called and her toilet wasn't working. And I said, ma'am, we're just not sending people out. And I wouldn't think she'd want us to. I mean, she's of the age. And I'm saying, well, maybe if I had my staff person talk to you, they may be able to give you some advice of something you could do for yourself that could at least get you by. So I get to talking further, and she said, or I could use my other bathroom. And I thought, yeah, call me in a couple months when things calm down. We'll be fine.
All right, list here, Smith, Graves, Roberts. Councilmember Smith.
Okay, I've got a number of questions. This is a big area of interest for me. So a couple nuts and bolts. So the CBDG grant says 50,000 plus, you automatically qualify. Do we just not qualify at all, or could we apply?
So you can qualify, you can apply. It is much easier when you have an established program and you are applying for additional funding.
Okay. So seed money first, and then set the program up, and then we could apply.
So just like any other government program, there's a ranking system. And you already having a well-run, established program, makes your application rank differently than a
Okay.
community that hasn't put forth the time and effort, if that makes sense.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I'm looking down this chart here with the funding caps, and I'm a little confused because the repairs you listed are much higher than the funding caps on this chart. Can you explain how, for example, you had a $23,000 repair, but the cap is $5,000 a year? So how did
So
that?
I'll answer that because that's in my memo, if that's okay.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That would be the city's portion. So out of the
Okay.
$10,000 bucket, that would be the city's portion. That's how these particular programs work. So sorry, I probably worded that a bit
Yeah.
confusing. The entire, this is a new process, quite a bit of questions, but what it is should they work with either one of these agencies? These particular municipalities have imposed the amount of money coming out of the city's portion of it maxes out at 5,000.
Okay, so that gets to, it looks like they're either federal grant programs or private donations. The question that I would have is, when we talked about business grant program during COVID, there was you can't use public funds for private benefit statute somewhere in Missouri, and how does this, did we say it's for the good of the community as a whole, for the public benefit, or how do we bridge that gap?
So there are a couple of smaller Missouri cities that do have this style of program, and the way that they couch it is, and you will hear this theme when Mr. Query talks about it's life and safety. So a lot of the repairs that Ms. Herbin's organization makes, as well as several of the things you'll hear when Mr. McQuarrie talk about, it's life safety.
Okay,
These
so-
homes, the residents are without heat. There is a life safety element.
Okay, and I totally agree, like, it would be good for us to do that. It's just, would we run afoul of some sort of law in Missouri and making sure that we didn't? Because it sounds like everything else is not funded internally from a city, according to the chart. Okay. The North Kansas City projects, you noted 3 in our city. How are those funded if we don't have a program?
We're here anyway.
Okay,
However we can get them.
so who paid, was it a
Two
different
of
city
them-
covered us, or?
2 of them are Federal Home Loan Bank, a grant that we apply for out of Des Moines.
Okay,
In combination with Clay County Senior Funds, we operate Clay County Senior Home Repair Program. I think you do some of it
Yeah.
too. And the other one is Missouri Housing Trust Fund, which is another grant that we apply for.
okay. So there's some overlapping areas of interest that would kind of piggyback on each other.
Let me give you a good example. So, for instance, we also get funding through Clay County Senior Services, and so they have a limit per house per year of $1,500. And so if we have a project that is going to take $2,500, we use $1,500 from them, and then we got to figure out another way to come up with $1,000. So as nonprofits, you learn to layer, to leverage, so where the money comes from depends on the person, the project, and the limits of the funding available. So obviously, if we have a Platte County applicant, we can't use Clay County Senior Funds in Platte County.
Okay,
But we're also both funded through Platte County Senior Fund.
gotcha.
So there's a lot of overlap here. What I really love about us working together, we collaborate, is that we can make a higher impact on
Right.
people's lives. So they may have funding that we don't have and vice versa. So what we've partnered together on a lot of projects over the last several years, and that's what's awesome, is that she may have a fund that can put on a new roof, well, we'll go in and do a lot of repairs that the leak in the roof caused, and we'll help them inside or other stuff. So you'll see more of what we do on it here in a minute.
Great. And then one last thing. My colleague, Mr. Graves, and I have been inside some of the worst houses in our line of work, and we have houses built from 1910 onward in North Kansas City. They've got a myriad of large issues, mostly foundation and plumb and sewer line related, which are in magnitude some of the biggest repairs you can make. Our expansive clay soil is very bad on foundations. If we're looking at using match funding from the Clay County program, since we're really not within the realm of federal right now, that would be a pretty big chunk needing to come from the city if we're going to make those sorts of repairs. So just thinking of the magnitude of what we need, it seems like a pretty big number that we would need to commit.
So go ahead.
Those homes with lots of foundation and drainage issues. You were talking, if you're really, in many cases, if you're really going to fix the problem, and anyone that guarantees you they can fix that, I would really think you need to talk to them seriously, would be 20, 30, I don't know, $1,000.
Oh, it's 30. I've had a number of quotes on houses.
There is, I mean, very, very expensive.
Right.
What we try to do most of the time is move the water away from the house. The people understand they may still have water in their basement, but we're trying to do the best we can. In fact, we even have a document that they sign that they understand that we're trying to stop the damage where it's at. We'll put in sump pumps. But to think we can go and make this a new foundation and they'll
Right.
never have another problem, probably it shouldn't have been built in Clay County would be one of the things,
Yeah.
because it's
So that's why it's called a minor home repair
Right,
program,
and
not
those are major, okay,
Yeah.
those wouldn't fall into the purview.
So we try to solve a lot of problems, but it gets beyond your scope, then you just have to say, this is just beyond
It's
us.
just tough to put a new roof on a house that is about to fall down,
Oh,
I
sure.
guess, and then.
And sometimes you don't.
Where we throw in
Right.
good money after bad.
Right, right.
Okay.
Councilmember Graves.
Thank you for your time and presentation. I'm a real estate agent as well as Jesse, and I've dealt with NNI for a number of years. And some of these projects you're working on in North Kansas City might actually be people I've had call you. I just wanted to also touch on something regarding the home modification, because that's very important. We have a lot of elderly people in our population that live in older homes, and it's important that they're allowed to age in place. And people have, you know, as you age, you might have mobility issues and need modifications in order to live comfortably in your home. And so that's also something I wanted to touch on. This isn't just about home repairs. It's about keeping elderly people in their home, which is important. And then the only thing on here that kind of caught my eye, it was a red flag, was we have a lot of rental property in North Kansas City, like a massive amount of rental property. And there's down here at the bottom, it says homeowner versus rental ? And so that's a concern for me. Like, there's people here in our community that might own 3 dozen rental houses. Like, are they going to be able to access this program, or does the income guideline restrictions kick them out of the program?
NNI has and the programs, the grants that we have to follow the guidelines of those grants. And I think in every instance, it requires people to own their home. We have worked with some other municipalities that, for whatever reason, in fact, we do a facade rehab or facade improvement project up down North Oak. If North Kansas City wants to do something different, we'll work with North Kansas City to forge a program that does that. But I can't think of an instance where we worked on rental homes.
And beyond those grant guidelines, that would be policy that we set. I believe that's why that's on here, and Kim could add to. if there's
Exactly.
anything else that-
That's one of my kind of questions to the governing body, is to help me understand where those policy questions lie. Specifically, probably more in the home modification lens is really where I think I'm looking for direction. And could I pivot now over, speaking of home
Well,
modification?
Councilmember Roberts
Oh,
wanted to throw.
my bad,
he had a
my bad.
question. That was your question, okay. Then please pivot.
Yeah, so you would have, the ability to say no rental properties, and we wouldn't use your funds for rental properties. So it's pretty cut and dried there as far as we're concerned. So I'm Clay McQuarrie. I'm the Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Kansas City. We've been around for 20 years doing improvements in the Northland. Started as Rebuilding Together Liberty, then Clay County, and now Kansas City. But the vast majority of our resources and families we've served have been north of the river. We happen to have 2 certified aging in place specialists on staff. I'm one of them. So basically, our vision is safe homes and communities for everyone. Our mission is repairing homes, revitalizing communities, rebuilding lives. Our goal is to eliminate unsafe and substandard living conditions, and our target would be veterans, seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income families. We have 2 programs to accomplish this mission, and basically the one, Safe at Home, is all year round. That's where we do our home safety modifications, but we also address urgent repairs, similar to what Deb was talking about. No heat in the winter, no cool in the summer, no running water, no hot water. sewage backing up in the basement, stuff that can't wait until our second program in September. We try to address if we have the resources and help people out with those situations. Our second program, Rebuilding Day, happens every September, and that's where we mobilize a lot of volunteer crews, usually around 400 volunteers working on 20 to 25 houses throughout Clay County. So that's where we do a lot of higher impact rehab projects. Save at Home is our year-round program, so the best way for you to see what we do is just some before and after pictures. We're finding a lot more common elderly parents living with their kids. So here, this guy, he had his parents there. They had a hard time getting on and off the shower seat, and I think you can see why. So we went in, put in some grab bars, and repaired the wall. Two people in their 80s, husband and wife, both had fallen down this long winding sidewalk, so our crews went out there and installed that nice long handrail for him. This lady in her 70s, I don't know if you can see it, on the before shot, she had 2 loose concrete blocks. That's what she used for a step until our crew went in and built that nice porch and step. This lady, yep, still driving, 95 years old. Her problem was getting from her front step to the car. So we poured a new sidewalk and some low-rise steps up to the car pad. Low-rise long tread steps. We get a lot of applications for people wanting us to build a ramp. Go in there and there's nobody in a wheelchair. That's because they don't know about these neat things. Low-rise, long tread steps. They're perfect for somebody with a walker. And so we do install a lot of those. We also use AMRAMPs. They're steel ramps. They're an awesome product. They're very expensive, but we have a partnership with the local AMRAMP. They're awesome. The guy who's the AMRAMP representative, he puts them up, he takes them down. We use them for short-term use primarily or limited space. And the beauty is he warehouses the inventory and we can reuse them in the future. There's a couple more. We also build wooden ramps. We have a bunch of retired skilled guys that love getting out of the house and helping people. They build some awesome ramps. They build them to code and they do a great job and they're very sturdy. You may know Chuck Logan. He's the engineer that signed off on this particular modular ramp design. It was developed out of the Independent Living Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so we build those. We don't sink concrete in the ground because we don't have to. And when the ramp's no longer needed, they're easier to remove. Here's a man in North Kansas City. His friend built the ramp on the left. And unfortunately, he fell 2 or 3 times off of the ramp and hurt himself before he contacted us. Our guys went out there and, as you can tell, built a much better ramp for him. There's the same ramp from a different angle. Yeah, this was a neat partnership. I got a call from one of your fire department gentlemen and said, hey, this lady here in North Kansas City really needs a ramp badly. And so we ended up sending our ramp crew out there, and I asked him and said, any of your guys interested in helping to build it? And he said, sure. So they did, had a few firefighters from North Kansas City show up. They helped to build the ramp with our crew, and guess what? It was January of 2019. The government was shut down, and some ladies who volunteered with us before were looking for something to do to get out of the house. They showed up and helped too. For a gentleman who's legally blind in North Kansas City, he had a hard time finding the buttons on his appliance, so we got introduced to bump dots. That red dot there is something he can find, and he can find the other buttons by locating that. He also needed some other modifications, installed some lit-up light switches for him. He also just needed a couple of extra handrails. That's all you need sometimes, handrail here and there. This lady here in North Kansas City just had some unsafe steps, so we improved those. Another one that needed some modifications. Grab bars, handrails. This lady here, North Kansas City, she had no drains that were working. She got the first estimate from a local contractor. He gave her a $3,800 bid. We have partnering contractors, partnering plumbers, electricians, heating and cooling guys, and one particular plumber, he has a passion for our mission and for helping folks. He charged her half of that to fix them. Sometimes we get special grants. One of the advantages of being part of a national organization is that we have national sponsors. This particular grant was a national $15,000 grant. This gentleman was wheelchair bound and he had torn up all the carpets. So we were able to put in all new laminate flooring, which was much easier for him to get around. But we also had money left over, and their outside siding in the last bottom half was deteriorating. So we were able to put in some smart boards and went ahead and painted the whole house, and their gutters weren't working, so we installed some new gutters for them. So if you have a large grant, like I said, that was a $15,000 grant, you can do higher impact projects. So We started doing one-year follow-up surveys of our Safe at Home program, so people who had received safety modifications, a year later, we would contact them, ask them different questions. One of the key questions is, how many times had you fallen in your house before the modifications? And a year later, how many times had you fallen? Started doing it in 2015. They had fallen 62 times in their house before and only 2 times a year later in the areas we modified. Every year after that, 94 to 4, 84 to 1, and 2018 was 102 to 0 a year later. So we like those numbers. We'd like them to be 0 every time. Rebuilding days once a year, September. This was one we did in North Kansas City a couple of years ago. And this gentleman, if you can see on the left, I'm telling you, those guardrails weren't built to code. He was missing his bottom step, so the crew on rebuilding day, as you can tell, improved that a lot. They also had a crew built a ramp for him before, but they didn't connect it to his driveway, and he struggled mightily to go down between. So the crew on rebuilding day connected the ramp. So together, that gives you an idea of just some of the pictures that we do. Since our inception, we've helped over 1,046 families in the Northland. We help our neighbors who cannot financially or physically do the repairs themselves. Our 2020 clients had an average annual household income of only $21,695, which means they just can't afford repairs and modifications. So a lot of these folks, quite honestly, my office is in a building with a Harvester's Food Bank. I see a lot of the same people that can't afford the next meal, and that's who we're helping. The greatest challenge by far is to help people stay in their own homes and avoid homelessness or moving to a care facility. The greatest challenge is funding. So the more financial support we have, the more neighbors in need that we can help to safely stay in their North Kansas City homes. One of my biggest concerns, and has been for a while, is affordable housing. So we like to think we're helping the cities out with preserving affordable housing. If you haven't noticed, a lot of the new houses being built these days are not very affordable, at least not on $21,000 a year. So we like to think we're helping cities out in a lot of different ways, but not only saving people's lives, but also preserving affordable housing. So.
Thank you, appreciate the presentation there. So I did want to skip down to kind of the bottom. Does council, I'll go right for it. Does council have interest in pursuing any of these programs? Okay, I feel like there's a yes there. So going down here, anyone have any funding levels in mind? That was just kind of open-ended, wasn't it? Is there, how much does Gladstone put into it, or I don't know?
I could answer that. So Gladstone puts $10,000 in minor home repair and $10,000 in home modifications.
10,000 for the entire?
10,000 for each bucket.
Per year.
Per year, correct.
Okay.
I have reached out to a couple of colleagues, again, that have similar style programs from what I have been told. Just to kind of expect, there's kind of a large ramp up of demand, and then over the many years, because you start repairing a lot of these homes, as the program extends, you can start to decrease the funding because you've addressed a lot of the homes in your neighborhood through multiple years of funding the style of program. So I'll just kind of put that out there. I did remember it was Platte City that I reached out to that has a similar style program. It is city funded, and it does go toward homes.
Councilmember Palumbi.
Kim, where would this funding be coming from? Or I guess where do we start?
That was my final question. I was going to find out how much first. But I don't know, is there room in the general
Yeah,
fund,
is
or
this-
is this?
My recommendation would be general fund. Again, you will hear this song from me many times. I would like to start getting away from funding ongoing expenses out of the gaming fund. The general fund does have the capacity right now to fund this style of program. Of course, it depends on what number you tell me.
I was going to say, yeah, do we have any other comments on numbers? Councilmember Smith and Toll.
On a comparative basis,
That's fine.
Gladstone puts in 10,000. What is their revenue like? So we're comparing apples to apples. They have a whole lot bigger tax base than we do, right?
By the numbers, though, we're comparable
Okay.
when you look at our overall budget.
Yeah, let's just, that sounds like a good number to start with, and open other
It's
thoughts.
10,000 each, right?
Councilmember Toll. Councilmember Schaefer.
I have a question about what exactly we would be funding. I'm going to go back to the home repairs. When I had asked about the 12%, I think you said that was the fee that your organization keeps from the grants, because you need an administration fee, correct?
Right.
Okay, so when you said you needed a match, I wasn't sure if a percentage of our match would go to administrative fees, or if this money that the city puts in goes, and I'm not saying I would be against it, I just want to understand where the money would go.
We apply for home repair grants, even though some of them, we look to match these up, even though some of them are gonna have a hard time making them work as far as financially goes. And so sometimes we have a gap in a program. 12% is what is allowed for admin on FHLB. Other programs may have 25%, which is getting much closer to reality. But it's all negotiated. One thing I would say, though, about Gladstone, many times Gladstone supports many of the efforts that we do financially and has supported our fundraisers and those type of things. So often, their admin fee are things we just absorb. I mean, there's a
So
long
it's on a
relationship.
case-by-case basis.
We'd work with your staff, to do what they want us to do.
Okay.
For us, Gladstone does 15% admin, 85% project expenses.
Councilmember Saber.
Because of the backlog that's been built up over time and the issue of starting a program up, I would recommend a higher initial funding level. And we could adjust that in future years. And again, if we budget it and if we don't spend it all, it's still there. But because of the fact that there is a backlog and it's a new program, I would like to give us the flexibility to meet that initial need.
And did you have a specific number in mind?
Double it to 20.
Is there a backlog in North Kansas City right now?
Oh, I'm sure that there is. And one thing that North Kansas City, and this is certainly a policy decision for your body, but I was thrilled today to hear that the old farmland building, which was then Cerner, is now going to be occupied by North Point. Did you hear that? And I know that's not in North Kansas City, but it seems to me that North Kansas City neighborhoods would be a great place to live and work there. I would see some targeted program in North Kansas City. North Kansas City's become a really cool place to live. I mean, our son lives in North Kansas City. I mean, he can walk his dog and go have a beer somewhere, which is not possible in our neighborhood. There's no, but we've also done that with Gladstone, is targeted certain areas. It's what the city wants.
Would you be good with that number?
Wait,
I'm
10
going to
or
repeat
20?
it just so that I can
Yeah.
have clarity.
He said double, right, to 20 per
Correct, it'd be
bucket.
20 per bucket, so an overall 40,000. Am I
That's where-
understanding that
I
number?
feel like we're playing a game show now. Anyone opposed to that number?
I have a question about it.
Councilmember Smith.
So knowing how budgets generally go, it's very hard to roll something backwards once it's been authorized. More often than not, it becomes, well, that's what we did before, so we're going to keep doing it. I would stick with the 10,000 per bucket and see how that does for the first year. And if there's a drastic backlog, we could ramp it up a little bit. That would be my thought.
I was going to say, from my understanding, we could always amend it if we hit this cap early.
Correct.
We could say budget amendment for another 5, 10, whatever.
And then if I could just quickly interject, I alluded to it earlier. Staff's intention would be to, as this program goes on for a couple of years, really work. Ms. Herman really is one of the experts on tackling funding, getting the city into place so that we could receive other styles of funding to support this program. But again, we have to start somewhere. As our applications are scored, we rank higher if we have an established program.
Councilmember Graves.
As a negotiator, I just got to throw out 15, 15. We can do better than Gladstone. We have very old homes here in our area, and this is a very important project. As council people, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing, is helping our neighbors in need and helping people age in place. So that's my suggestion, 15, 15, but with a caveat, homeowners only. Personally, it would bug me if this money's going to people who are owning rental property and theoretically making income off the property.
Thank you. Councilmember Toll.
I was just comparing apples to apples again. If we have the same budget as Gladstone, we certainly have fewer homes as far as space that we have here. but you've been working in these areas, so what can you tell us about the condition of our older homes compared to just north of us?
You don't want to hear it. No, the older homes are really a challenge. I mean, Mr. Smith has already indicated that. I mean, the older homes have a lot of issues, and so we do everything we can that's within our budget to address them. And so, it's like we said, that gets to the point where you have to say, well, this is outside of our scope if it comes to a major foundation repair. But, there's a lot of things we can do. We can repair the furnaces and air conditioners, the electrical, the plumbing. We can do a lot of stuff. It's just that when they're as old as they are in this neighborhood, you're looking at a lot of problems if they haven't been able to afford to keep them maintained. That's the key.
Councilmember Smith, then
Yeah.
Clevenger.
The idea would be like, it's like preventative maintenance versus, so it's taking vitamins versus having surgery. So we would be buying the vitamins. But I'm strong on the 10 number right now because we need to see where this is going to go. And then, yeah, we can address the tenants versus owners situation on the next question.
Your housing stock is really, you've got, NNI also redid the house, I can't remember the address now, the one right across the street from the high school on the corner.
Councilmember Clevenger.
That was one of our purchase. Yes.
Sure, that was a great, that.
Absolutely phenomenal, beautiful home. So, I mean, but you've also got some, they were probably very inexpensive at the time they were put up to start with. And some of those, there may be decisions you have down the road of areas you want to target for redevelopment.
So for me, I would definitely agree with Councilmember Graves on the homeowners thing. I think if you're a landlord and you're renting these out, it's your responsibility. And as far as the funding, I mean, I could go either way. I mean, I do want to put enough money into the program, but if we can amend it, then let's just get it started.
All right, so I'm going to go bottom to top here. Program funding source, we all agree general fund seems to be the good route there unless there's any objection there. Okay, going up the list here. Qualifications for the program. Do we all want owner occupied, homeowner? Is that generally, Councilmember Smith, you had something on
Okay,
that one?
so coming from me, this is gonna be a tough one, because I do own a number of rental properties. For the minor home repairs, yes, homeowners only, absolutely, because landlords should be responsible for minor home repairs, to keep your property in good shape. The second side, where your target is veterans, elderly, low income, more often than not, those are going to be renters. And for a landlord to spend the money to install a ramp that will likely be temporary for the tenant that's in that point, that's not an expectation that would generally come with owning a rental property. So if the landlord has the funds to do it, great, but I think this should be something that on the modification side would also qualify for tenants. That's my 2 cents on the
Do we
matter.
want to split or do we want to stick with owner occupied? Councilmember Palumbi.
I've got to agree with Jesse on this one. Based on kind of what you guys alluded to, if a lot of your guys' funding comes from people with low income, so I can't imagine that these rental property owners are going to qualify for these grants, or am I missing something there? Because you go, it's income based.
It's income based.
So, is that based on the owner of the home? Which is
Yes.
probably why you don't deal with a lot of rental.
And not only the owner, it's the income, the whole household income.
Household income is what we normally use.
Anyone
Okay.
in the house that's working.
So-
How you would do a rental because the owner doesn't live there.
Okay.
So I'm not,
So then in Jesse's point about people who require some kind of modification because of, safety purposes, would then that be the renter's total income that would be, or would it be the
we've
owner's
never,
total income?
I don't think we've had a program that would fund.
Yeah, we have, there's been a few, it's not that common, but there's been a few just for the situation that he brought up, that they needed a ramp and, we would put that up with the landlord's permission. So, I mean, it's up to you all if you want your funding to go to that or not, but he's right. So for instance, if a veteran's renting a property and there's, he needs a grab bar, if the law as a landlord signed off on it, we would do a safety modification, but we don't do repairs and things like that on rental property. But you're right. It's happened a few times, not much. Oddly enough, so Inglewood Vista is a senior apartment complex. they got to where they would only use our guys, because our guys, this is their expertise in how to do stadium modifications. So that, the homeowner, the renter would pay for it, but we're talking a grab bar and a higher toilet, right? So, stuff like that.
So I would say then, based on how like renter heavy North Kansas City is, I think we need to take that into account in terms of modifications, and maybe kind of having a double, or I guess a two-sided thing where for home ownership, we say modifications are the responsibility of the owner, and then for renter purposes, maybe we look at an alternative for them, since we have so many renters in North Kansas City.
All right, so I'm going to clarify that with everybody. So
Different thing.
the question, I guess, would be, are you for allowing rental properties to get these grants for modifications? Yes? Yeah, I'm just talking modifications only. I have,
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Did I understand that you guys then take it back, say if that person
The
moves on?
steel ones, the wooden ones we don't.
Okay.
The steel ones.
Like
we
railings or things like
reuse.
that,
The
say
steel
that they
ones we
used them for 2
reuse.
months and then moved out or something? Would that be something where you could go acquire it back?
Right.
Use it
right.
for another property
For the
kind of
steel
thing?
ramps, yes, uh-huh.
Just the ramps, like if you install a grab bar in a shower, you're not gonna take that
Yeah,
out.
not in a shower, not in a
The
shower.
holes in the tile and stuff, but.
I mean, I got two. I mean, is anyone else on council for allowing this on rentals? I have no.
I just had a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Toll.
If it's a rental property and we have many apartment buildings that are ADA compliant, I'm not sure why the renter wouldn't go to an apartment that would better suit their needs. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Councilmember Roberts.
I'll just make a quick note that a lot of those same people that you're asking that need a ramp or other assistance, there's a whole lot of those programs for seniors and veterans that I think those same people could reach out to if they're a renter. I think focusing on home ownership here with the pool of houses we're talking about, I think should come first. And if we find out maybe in the year that you're getting a lot of requests from renters that are getting turned down, maybe we can look to extend that. But there are a plethora of options for people to find services like that. I think we should be focusing a little bit more directly on home ownerships, repairs and modifications, at least initially.
So I'm mostly hearing owner occupied still, and we can always modify if appropriate down the road, similar with the budget. Any dispute on that?
Would
No,
people,
okay.
would people ask for it if they knew they weren't gonna qualify? I mean, so to your point, like, if we have a backlog of requests that aren't being filled or denied, like, nobody's gonna ask if they don't qualify. So we wouldn't know if there was a need.
People would apply regardless. I think that's kind of how this might work. Again, like there's other opportunities that aren't going to be as restrictive as this might be for those people looking for assistance.
Going up the list from what I've heard so far, I'm going to go on to program participant income levels. Does anyone have any additional ideas besides going with the HUD income limits? I don't have any other levels, so HUD income limits it is, it sounds like. Okay. Did we finally set on funding level? Is it the 10? Is that what, are we fine with 10 and amending? I mean, is that,
I mean, do we wanna
very
go and
amendable.
call for vote on that, like 10, 15, 20?
maybe we can. I mean, we
Just so
can, I
we
mean,
know
if
where
we want
people are
to,
at.
if someone wants to. Okay.
This is a work session, so
yeah,
I don't know if you can
if
do a
there's-
I mean,
formal
yeah, it's not a
motion,
formal
but I
vote,
think you
but-
could do hand raising.
Okay, and we'll go, just so everyone knows where I'm going, 20, 15, 10. So there will be all three. So, okay, who's in favor of 20? 15 and 10.
Okay.
12 and a half. No, I'm kidding. No, we'll go up.
Do we
We'll go
want
with
to do preference on the modification program for renters for tenants versus owners as well? Show of
Okay, does anyone want anything, does anyone want to consider the modification program for rental properties? I said that kind of wrong, but okay, we got 1, 2, okay.
Okay.
And so everyone else just owner occupied. All right, so we have that wrapped up. Is there any other direction needed from staff?
No, so I'll just kind of quickly daisy chain my next steps here. So I will be working with both of these agencies to bring forward some formal agreements to be considered by you in the future. And I will put in 20,000, 10 and 10, in the proposed budget, which will be delivered to you in August.
Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, appreciate it.
1 minute?
I forgot my brochures, can she email them to you?
Please do.
Thank you.
All right, 7 o'clock. Who's ready? No, I'm kidding. We'll come back at 7:05, 7:05, 7:05.